National Assembly plans review of National Data Protection Act of 2023 to meet emerging challenges. New admission policy. Federal government scraps UTME requirement for NCE, ND non-technology and agric programs in colleges of education, polytechnics and colleges of agriculture. The federal government and northern leaders partner to end circulating polio variants. In the best manner and loudest voice they can, African countries are demanding a new world order in investment financing and partnerships with willing developed countries, declaring that the continent is ready to build its development with the resources and talents in the region. Status correspondent Musbat and Wahab reports that this is central goal of the Africa Forward Summit 2026 under the theme Africa-France Partnerships for Innovation and Growth.
Jomo Kenyatta, first Kenyan president, dropped some words on the marble. Part of them, and I quote, "Our children may learn about heroes of the past. Our task is to make ourselves architects of the future." End of quote. President Bola Tinubu was at the Kenyatta International Convention Center as Africa took a major step towards the future they want. Many other leaders on the continent also approved of the decision with their presence. 54 countries on the continent, with the youngest population in the world, enormous resources and fertile land, world-class entrepreneurs and the required markets, African countries are saying enough of dependency on developed countries for development. Co-organizer President William Ruto, who spoke for the continent, says what Africa requires now is no longer charity, but partnerships and investments in a dignified manner for mutual benefit.
We must confront with honesty and urgency the question of how Africa finances its own transformation. The era in which Africa's development was principally framed through aid, dependency, and unsustainable borrowing must give way to a new paradigm grounded in investment, innovation, domestic resource mobilization, and strategic partnerships built on quality and mutual benefit. What Africa requires today, friends, is not charity, but investments. Not extraction, but value creation. Not dependency, but mutually beneficial partnerships capable of unlocking shared prosperity.
The demand for Africa representation in the United Nations Security Council has lingered for long, and President Ruto is rooting for this again.
No global governance architecture can credibly claim to be democratic, to be representative, to be just, or fit for purpose, while a substantial part of humanity remains absent from the table where the world's most consequential decisions are made.
With an earlier announcement of a $27 billion investment in the continent at this summit, President Emmanuel Macron is presenting France as a dependable ally, ready for a mutually respectful and beneficial relationship.
So what we need to do is look at the partnership that we want together through a logic of investment. And this is where we see this agenda of prosperity and sovereignty altogether. Getting Africa forward on the economic level means greater sovereignty and autonomy. It's important for Europeans as well.
Like an idea of whose time has come, this registers as a new beginning in the Africa-France partnership The gains of a renewed relationship are much expected. From Nairobi, Musbal and Wahab, NC News.
Nigeria is leveraging the Nigerian-France Business Council to seek support for the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, for maximum benefit of the agreement. It was at the council meeting on the sidelines of the just concluded Africa-France Summit 2026 in Nairobi, Kenya. State House correspondent Musbat and Wahab again brings this report.
Nigerian investors, including Aliko Dangote, Abdul Samad Rabiu, and their French counterparts, leveraged the Africa-France Summit to again strengthen their partnerships. It was the 10th meeting of the Nigeria-France Business Council. They recognized themselves as the driving force for a sustainable and protective partnerships between the two countries, with exchange of investments across. Nigeria currently represents 7% of France's total trade in Africa and leading destination of French foreign direct investment in sub-Saharan Africa. Nigerian Minister of Industry, Trade and Investments, Jumoke Oduwole, said Nigeria is taking steps to lead intra-Africa trade and a more integrated continental markets, which she wants the Council to also champion. Chairman of Bua Group, Abdul Samad Rabiu, recommends 3 foundations needed for the transformation of the continent to include capital, policy integration, and value addition has been demonstrated in the Nigerian cement industry.
Value addition so that all the resources that we have here in Africa will be able to add value to them. Instead of exporting everything in their raw form, we process them here, add value, and then export. If you take cocoa, for example, I keep giving this example because it's very interesting. 4 countries in Africa, in fact West Africa, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Nigeria, and Cameroon, they produce 75% of the total global supply of cocoa. This is a $200 billion industry annually, yet Africa gets only a fraction, maybe 10, probably 15% of that. So these are the areas that we need, to concentrate on.
The Council also commended the African House in France, initiated by President Emmanuel Macron to deepen trade relations between both countries.
What that does is, if completed, that is a venue where Africans will have the opportunity to dialogue, to connect, to collaborate, and also to build partnerships, across so many different sectors, industry, business, culture, innovation, in France, with the French people. So I think it's an important thing. We welcomed, the idea, and we are going to the African business community. We are going to fully support that project.
The Council proposes one more meeting ahead of the French president's visit to Nigeria, scheduled for October this year. From Nairobi, Musbal and Wahab, NC News.
Thank you very much, Musbal. Now joining us to talk more on the Africa-France Summit in Kenya is a public affairs analyst, Jide Ojo. Good morning, Jide. Thank you very much for making out time to join us on the news. As you heard, Africa is now raising or demanding fair financing and strategic alliances and investment. Can we view these as a normal rhetoric or real wake-up from slumber?
The demand for fair financing is coming at the right time, and I just hope that there will be follow-up actions. This should not just be mere rhetoric. We've had this before. There have been several summits in time past. There have been all manner of meetings, bilateral, multilateral, conferences, workshops, and all whatnots. But the biggest elephant in the room is implementation. Listening to the president of Kenya, William Ruto, talking about, not wanting charity, they want fair deal, they want value creation, they want fair financing. But you see, you just also hear the report on African Continental Trade Area. How have we taken advantage of that? The 54 African countries, how have we taken advantage of AFTA to better our individual countries? I think there is a lot of pull and push which we have to deal with. There must be sincere commitment on part of African leaders. No foreign country, no foreign investor would develop our country for us or our continent, as it were, unless we make conscious efforts to also carry the, unless we are ready to do the heavy lifting in terms of, how to improve technology, the use of technology in our trade, in our investment. How can we leverage on technology? How can we improve on, ICT, and to do many of the things? How can we use innovation to improve, for instance, our trade product? This is what the Western countries or the Asians will say and say, oh, we are willing and ready to partner with you. If France is not a developed country in terms of technology, I'm not sure they will be in a position to be having this kind of summit.
I quite agree with your thoughts there, but in terms of political will to assert authority, why have African countries been so lethargic for decades in resisting exploitation? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, political will is on two sides. On the side of maybe we can put it in context our colonial masters, and political will on the part of African leaders themselves. One thing I will say, which has also of this issue of financing, is a frequent change of leadership. In Africa, we have had coups and counter coups. We have had expiration of term of office. So a new leader comes in and refuses to pursue the policies of the previous one. This has hampered the implementation of many of these trade and finance investment policy decisions and all whatnot. So if we have political stability and we do not have this level of frequency of coup d'etat and political instability around us, maybe things will be better. But the Western countries who are also willing to do business with us must also show genuineness of intention. They must stop being exploitative. We know how France, for instance, was booted out of Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali over claims that they have been exploiting and taking advantage of these francophone countries since pre-independence era. And so it's when you talk about political will, it should be on both sides of the divide. Political will for those who want to come and invest with us to show genuineness of intention, and political will on the part of African leaders to also show good faith and also use their commonwealth to better the lives of their citizens.
Okay, let me comment that as a giant of Africa, must Nigeria really align with other African countries or adopt the policy of the Nigeria first?
Especially, I would say policy of Nigeria first. Even though the two are not mutually exclusive, you cannot be an island. No country is an island. You have to partner with other countries in terms of developmental effort. So while we admit that Nigeria is a giant of Africa, we are either the first or second best economy in Africa. These are not enough. We must have the policy of African first, just the same way Donald Trump is doing American first. We must have our citizens as the citizen-centric economic policies, because that is how we can leverage whatever advantages that we want to take, or whether at the African continental free trade area. I saw Abdul Samad Rabiu Bua, speaking to Musba Danwa up there, and he made a lot of sense with his submission. So it has to be African first, but while it is Nigerian first rather, while it is Nigerian first, we must also partner with other countries to take key policy decisions and ensure that they are implemented.
All right, thank you so much. I agree with you that partnership is key if we must expand across board, be it trade or business. Thank you very much, Mr. Jide Ojo, for making out time to join the news at 10.
My pleasure.
Thank you. All right, we take a commercial break now. More reports ahead. The National Assembly is to review the National Data Protection Act of 2023 to meet emerging challenges, and this is coming from the National Assembly Joint Committees on ICT and Cyber Security at the training for legislators on data protection.
Emergence of artificial intelligence and the growth of digital transactions and online engagements, the risk of data breaches and misuse of personal information has become more prevalent. This workshop brought together senators and members of the House of Representatives to deepen their understanding of data privacy, protection standards, and the emerging global best practices.
Review the National Data Protection Act of 2023, the first act that was signed by the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, and see that 3 years down the line, how far has this law addressed the needs of the nation, particularly given the emerging technologies, and how do we compare with other countries?
The legislators will be taken through key provisions of Nigeria's data protection laws, with experts highlighting the need for robust oversight, enforcement mechanisms, and alignment with international standards.
Understanding this technology and how it works will also help you understand that data also has stamps written all over them. Understanding these things can help you in the court of laws. It can help you in winning election, and it can also help your children and family. So this is going to feed us. We feed the nation.
It is expected that this training will equip the committee with the requisite information and provide a roadmap and time frame for the review of the Data Protection Act. Ignatius Nkwo, NTN News.
Wakano has become the convergent point for national discourse on accountability as stakeholders gather for the third National Anti-Corruption Conference. At the center of the discussion is a renewed call for stronger collaboration across all arms of government to deepen transparency and also confront corruption in Nigeria's public space. Details with Aminu Omar.
Nigeria's socio-economic challenges are widely linked to corruption. MNS, many say, continues to undermine development across key sectors of national life. Against this backdrop, the National Assembly Committee on Anti-Corruption is convening a 3-day National Anti-Corruption Conference to strengthen legislative responses and reinforce the fight against the scourge. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, represented at the event, commended President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's reforms, particularly efforts to block revenue leakages and the removal of fuel subsidy, which he said has significantly improved national revenue inflows.
Through this kind of interface and engagements with the agencies of government, especially those who are directly under obligation, constitutional jurisdiction to fight corruption, and with the members of the National Assembly putting hands together with them, we will come up with a fine law. We will come up with a better legislation.
We are committed to legislative interventions that remove loopholes in our legal framework. We must criminalize illicit enrichment explicitly.
The conference also brought together key government institutions, including the representative of the Chairman, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, who identified institutional integrity and the deployment of technology as critical tools in tackling corruption. In Kano, Aminu Umar, NTA News.
In talking education, federal government has scrapped unified tertiary matriculation examination UTME requirement for admission into Nigerian Certificate in Education NCE, as well as national diploma, non-technology, agriculture and agriculture-related programs in colleges of education, polytechnics and colleges of agriculture nationwide. In a statement by the Director of Press, Federal Ministry of Education, the decision was approved following consultations aimed at removing restrictive admission processes, limiting access to teacher education and agricultural training. However, candidates are still required to obtain the JAMB application form and process their admissions through the JAMB Central Admissions Processing System, CAPS. They are also expected to upload their O-level results on the JAMB portal, while admission letters for the programs will continue to be issued only by JAMB after due verification. And the ministry further states that any admission conducted outside CAPS remains illegal and void. Provosts and rectors have therefore been directed to stop issuing institutional admission letters, noting that compliance will be periodically monitored by the ministry in collaboration with JAMB, NCCE and NBTE. To achieve a lasting solution to challenges with devouring housing delivery in Nigeria, federal government, through the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, says strategic and accelerated collaboration with private sector through actionable policy implementation is given urgent and ultimate consideration. Minister of Housing made this known during the second edition of the Renewed Hope Housing PPP Summit in Abuja.
In Kugwa, where that local village where they stay in Kugwa, they are renting one bedroom flat about 1.2 million naira. And a local household.
Challenges such as urbanization, hike in house rent and building materials, obsolete land use policies and administration, inadequate housing financing, as well as access to housing delivery, over the years hindered many civil and non-civil servants from owning a house. The second edition of the Renewed Hope Housing PPP Summit, with the theme From Policy to Projects Financing, Housing at Scale Through PPPs, is a pathway of issues of government, including key players at the summit, say is a guarantee to decent and affordable large-scale housing delivery to Nigerians.
We recognize the public-private partnership as the most viable pathway to mobilize long-term finance, align public land and infrastructure with private sector experts, and deliver housing at a scale.
And this particular event cannot be another gathering of just talks, and talks. It cannot be another gathering of theory formulations, but definitely will have to come about what we think will help the sector.
The President believes that the basic needs of life, food security, and crucially shelter are the birthright of every Nigerian. Let us build a Nigeria where no citizen is a stranger to the comfort of a home.
A lecture on global perspectives on PPP housing models, lesson for Nigeria, was delivered. Reduced transaction cost, ambiguity in contracts, provision of access to land and housing financing in the build industry were among recommendations made by participants for a sustainable large-scale housing delivery. Francis Udojo, NT News.
Time now for a breather. More reports ahead. Stay tuned.